General Secretary, General Federation of the Trade Unions and Freedom for Öcalan campaign organizer, NICHOLLS. Thanks for accepting our interview invitation today.
Pleasure to be with you on this important day.
Thank you. The anniversary of the February 15, the international conspiracy, is our main topic today. So what is your comments on international conspiracy on this 22nd year of the international intelligence services kidnap Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Ocalan?
Well, let's really renew all of our efforts now throughout the world to make sure that this is the last such celebration, and that next year we celebrate Öcalan's release. This is probably the world's most significant political prisoner that we need to have released in order not just to bring freedom and justice and democracy for the Kurdish people, but also to bring a sense of equality, democracy, peace, and progressive thinking to the whole region. And the more I look back at what's happened to Öcalan, the more I'm convinced that the simple reason that he's being tortured on a daily basis like this is simply because he is known by the forces of reaction in the region to be the main spokesperson for peace in the region.
In light of the fact that the incarceration is clearly a breach of fundamental human rights and has been condemned by the European Committee for the Prevention of Torture (CPT), what is your message to Turkish state and the United Nations, as well as the Kurdish people too?
Well, to the Kurdish people we say our heartfelt and continuing solidarity in this just cause, and we with you will win, and your cause now is more known and popular throughout the world than it ever has been, and it is focusing on the release of Öcalan to ensure that you get your rights and progress can be made throughout the region. To Turkey we say every day that Öcalan is in jail is another condemnation in the eyes of the world of your inability to modernize and to want and be seen throughout the world to be organizing for peace. And to the United Nations we say, you must now act. The new letter being signed throughout the world, initiated by Kosatu and others, is very significant. It cannot be ignored. We want early action in March this year to start the process of negotiating for his release and for Turkey to be brought back properly to have sensible discussions about peace throughout the region. And we also immediately want family and lawyers to be allowed, as all international rules say they should be, to visit Öcalan. And to the EU we say, put the pressure on Turkey in all ways that you can. You tried to put pressure on Britain recently in relation to vaccines and fishing and shellfish. You can do much more in relation to Turkey if you're genuine about seeing peace and cooperation in that region.
Scottish Solidarity with Kurdistan campaigner, Freedom for Öcalan supporter, and Peace in Kurdistan campaign supporter, dear Sarah Glynn, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the anniversary of the February 15 international conspiracy is our main topic. What is your comments on the international conspiracy on the 22nd year of the international intelligence services kidnap Kurdish leader Mr. Öcalan?
Well, the capture of Ocalan was a shameful moment for many countries who conspired with Turkey and the CIA to deprive him of asylum and deliver him into the hands of the Turkish state. And I wish we could say that this was a one-off aberration, but the selfish national interests and imperial rivalries that underlay those events still direct international politics and are directing responses to Turkey's current aggression against the Kurds and more broadly. And it was actually under a Democrat President, Bill Clinton, that the PKK was put on the US terrorist list and that Ocalan was captured. And I think it's important to remind ourselves too of the judgment a year ago by Belgium's highest court that the PKK should not be considered a terrorist organization, but as a party in a non-international armed conflict. It's in a struggle for freedom, and a negotiated agreement with Ocalan is the only realistic chance for a peaceful resolution to this struggle. He's been ready to talk about peace for a very long time.
Unite the Union International Desk Director Simon Dubbins, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Erin. It's always a pleasure to join you.
What is your message to the Turkish state, the United Nations, as well as Kurdish people?
Well, certainly to the Turkish state, we would say, look, more and more people are aware. The CPT has made its position clear. Everybody knows what you are doing is quite outrageous. The conditions which you are holding Mr. Öcalan in are utterly inhumane. And we would urge the Turkish state to release Mr. Öcalan and to re-engage in a peace process as they did between 2013 and 2015. To the Kurdish people, we would say, although things are very difficult, do not lose hope, do not give up. There is a bigger and bigger international campaign. More and more bodies like the CPT and others are recognizing what is going on, the injustice of it, the inhumanity of it. And I think also we have a very new context now. We have a new president in the United States. And whilst we certainly wouldn't build up any false hopes, there are indications that President Biden takes a very different view to that of Mr. Trump. And we hope that that will create a much better atmosphere to move forward in, that more pressure will be brought to bear on Turkey. We need to build that to make Turkey return to the path of peace and negotiation.
Wales TUC General Secretary and the Time Has Come campaign supporter SHAVANAH, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
What are your comments on international conspiracy?
The TUC itself, we have a long-standing, history of supporting trade unions in Turkey, and it is becoming an increasing priority for our affiliates because we've had motions in 2016 and 2017 that demonstrate our support for freedom of Öcalan, and we have made it explicitly clear that we need to have an ending of the mistreatment of the Kurdish community, that all political prisoners must be released, and including Abdullah himself as well. Because I think, as I've said many a times before, and as many in the trade union movement have said, we see the releasing of Abdullah Öcalan as a real step forward to peace talks and engagement as far as a peace process is concerned. And given the current state of the world and the amount of healing that is needed, it is absolutely critical now that the Turkish government does the right thing and releases Abdullah.
Assistant General Secretary of the Unite and one of the supporter of Freedom for Öcalan campaign, Tony Burke, thanks for joining us today. What is your message to Turkish state, the United Nations, as well as in that case to the Kurdish people as well?
Well, first of all, to the United Nations, they have got to do a lot more than they are. They can bring pressure on the Turkish government. Secondly, my message to the Turkish government is that you are now going to become a pariah state. People see the Turkish government as being repressive, and not just against the Kurdish people, but against trade unions. And it is time for them, if they want to join the international community, they should do so by putting right this wrong and releasing Öcalan from his ongoing imprisonment. And generally to the European Union, to the USA, and other countries to join with us in this campaign, to put pressure on the Turkish government. Certainly in the UK, we've got to soon talk to Turkey about a trade agreement. And I think that we should be saying to the British government that they need to put pressure on the Turkish government to end the incarceration of Öcalan before we'll even sit down and negotiate a new trade agreement with Turkey, not just on Öcalan's case, which is overwhelming, but also on the treatment of trade unionists and the opposition to the Turkish government. That has got to end, and the sooner they can do that, the better.
United Union International Officer Claire Baker, thanks for joining us. Thank you for accepting my interview invitation today. In light of the fact that the incarceration is clearly a breach of fundamental human rights and has been condemned by European Committee for the Prevention of Torture, CPT, what is your message to the Turkish state, the United Nations, as well as the Kurdish people?
Well, we would look at, from a trade union perspective, we've got a long history of supporting social justice movements from Chile to Colombia, Palestine to South Africa. And the Kurdish struggle with its values of grassroots democracy, women's liberation, equality and ecology match those of the trade union movement. So our message to the Kurdish people really is that the society that they've created through the women's revolution in Rojava, based on Öcalan's writing, is something that inspires us on everybody that hears about it. And through the trade union campaign Freedom for Öcalan in the UK, we're trying to get that message out there to everybody through the whole of the trade union movement. And the trade union movement is the biggest civil society movement in the world. So for a social justice movement to get the trade union movement behind it is very important and very crucial. We see the vulnerability of Rojava for the continuing attacks by Turkey, and the vulnerability of the Kurdish people in Turkey through the continuing repression and violence against it by President Erdogan. So we know that we must raise our collective voice for the Kurdish struggle here in the UK and in the EU and the UN and globally with every institution that we can, with every people's movement that we can. So the message is for the Kurdish people is that we're here, we stand with you, and we'll fight with you for peace, for your freedom. For the UN, we want the international community needs to pay attention to what's happening here. They need to pay attention to the invasion by Turkey into North Syria and need to do something about it in order to save the people there. And for the Turkish government, we would say that we're here, we're watching what you're doing, we're noting what you're doing, and we will always fight against what you're doing to the Kurdish people.
Dear Claire Baker, United Union International Officer, thanks for joining us today. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.